Imagine waking up on a Friday morning and checking your bank account before work. Payday arrives later that afternoon, and until then, every dollar matters. You know exactly how much money is available, exactly which bills are due, and exactly how long you need that balance to last. Nothing unusual has happened. No emergency. No major setback. Yet there is a subtle tension in the background because the margin for error is extremely small. For millions of people, this experience is completely normal. Living paycheck to paycheck is often discussed as an income problem, but the reality is more complicated. Income certainly matters, yet two people earning the same amount can experience financial life very differently depending on how much margin exists between their expenses and their available resources. That margin, or lack of it, influences decisions in ways that are often invisible until you step back and examine the system as a whole. Imagine a simple example. Your car suddenly needs an $800 repair. For someone with several months of expenses sitting in savings, the repair is annoying but manageable. They schedule the repair, pay the bill, and continue with their routine. For someone living paycheck to paycheck, the exact same repair can create a completely different chain of events. The repair might be delayed, it might be placed on a credit card, it might require borrowing money or rearranging other bills. Transportation issues may create additional expenses. The repair itself still costs $800, yet the final financial impact can become much larger. What's interesting is that this pattern extends far beyond car repairs. It appears in grocery shopping, housing, transportation, healthcare, and countless other parts of daily life. People with financial buffers can often purchase larger quantities at lower unit costs. They can absorb unexpected expenses immediately. They can compare options and wait for better opportunities. People with little margin frequently have fewer choices available, even when they understand perfectly well which option would be more efficient over the long run. This is where financial psychology becomes important. Behavioral economists often describe scarcity as something that changes attention. When resources become limited, the brain naturally prioritizes immediate concerns. If rent is due next week becomes the priority. If a bill must be paid tomorrow becomes the priority. This response is not irrational. In fact, it is often exactly what a person should do. The challenge is that long-term planning becomes more difficult when short-term obligations consume most of the available mental energy. Researchers sometimes describe this as a narrowing of attention. The mind becomes highly focused on urgent problems because urgent problems demand solutions. As a result, decisions that appear expensive from a long-term perspective can feel completely necessary in the short term. Someone may choose the option that preserves stability today, even if it creates additional costs later. The decision itself often makes sense within the circumstances. The problem is that repeated short-term decisions can gradually create more future pressure. This helps explain why living paycheck to paycheck can feel exhausting even when nothing catastrophic is happening. The stress does not always come from a single event. Often it comes from the constant awareness that unexpected expenses could create immediate consequences. A late payment feels larger. A repair feels larger. A medical bill feels larger. Not necessarily because the amounts are enormous, but because there is very little distance between the problem and the potential crisis. That distance is one of the most underrated concepts in personal finance. Financial stability does not eliminate challenges. Everyone encounters unexpected expenses, uncertainty, and setbacks. What stability often provides is time. Time to think. Time to compare options. Time to negotiate. Time to recover. Time may be one of the most valuable assets money can purchase because better decisions frequently require time more than they require intelligence. This helps explain why living paycheck to paycheck can feel exhausting even when nothing catastrophic is happening. The stress does not always come from a single event. Often it comes from the constant awareness that unexpected expenses could create immediate consequences. A late payment feels larger. A repair feels larger. A medical bill feels larger. Not necessarily because the amounts are enormous, but because there is very little distance between the problem and the potential crisis. That distance is one of the most underrated concepts in personal finance. Financial stability does not eliminate challenges. Everyone encounters unexpected expenses, uncertainty, and setbacks. What stability often provides is time. Time to think. Time to compare options. Time to negotiate. Time to recover. Time may be one of the most valuable assets money can purchase because better decisions frequently require time more than they require intelligence. Historically, this pattern appears repeatedly during recessions, economic downturns, and periods of uncertainty. The individuals and institutions that tend to weather disruptions most effectively are not always the highest earners. Often they are the ones with the greatest reserves. Reserves create flexibility. Flexibility creates options. And options influence decisions in ways that compound over time. Ultimately, the hidden cost of living paycheck to paycheck is not simply interest charges, late fees, or emergency borrowing, although those certainly matter. The larger cost is often the pressure itself. Pressure narrows attention. Pressure reduces flexibility. Pressure encourages immediate solutions, and immediate solutions are frequently more expensive than patient ones. This is why financial stability often feels different before it looks different. The paycheck may remain the same. The job may remain the same. The lifestyle may remain largely unchanged. Yet something subtle begins to shift. Decisions feel less rushed. Unexpected expenses feel less threatening. The future becomes slightly easier to think about because today's problems no longer consume every available resource. In the end, living paycheck to paycheck is costly not simply because money is limited, but because scarcity changes the way people interact with the economic system around them. It changes the choices available, the time available, and the consequences attached to mistakes. And once that becomes visible, it becomes easier to understand that financial stability is not merely about having more money. It is often about creating enough distance between ordinary problems and genuine crises that life becomes easier to navigate.